This week in the security news, automakers respond to Flipper Zero attacks. More on the unconfirmed Elastic EDR 0-day when Secure Boot does its job, but too well. Crazy authentication bypass, hacker ultimatums, AI slop, impatient hackers. Linux ISOs are now malware. Attackers love drivers. Hacking Amazon's Eero the hard way. Exploits will continue until security improves. The Salesloft breach. TP-Link 0 days using US DoD using Russian software. And my favorite story of the week, the Lasagna denial of service attack. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Your company runs on Google Workspace, but it's an afterthought for most security tools. Material Security is the first and only platform purpose-built to protect Google Workspace, securing email, data, and user accounts from advanced threats. From blocking sophisticated phishing attacks in Gmail to preventing unauthorized app usage and fixing risky file sharing in G Drive, Material continuously protects your data. Don't settle for second best. Protect Google Workspace with Material Security. Learn more at securityweekly.com/Material Security. Security Weekly and Cyber Risk TV are headed back to one of the biggest identity security events of the year, Octane 2025. Put on by Okta. Live September 24th through the 26th, the vibrant city of Las Vegas, Octane 2025 brings together the best minds in identity, security, and technology innovation. And this year, we're turning up the volume. Security Weekly will be on site in full force with Mandy Logan and Adrian Sanabria leading the charge. Get ready for live-streamed executive interviews, exclusive on-site editorial coverage from SC Media, and brand new this year, a live-streamed episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. It's your chance to engage with identity leaders, dive into the future of AI security, and hang out with your favorite Security Weekly hosts. And here's the best part. Security Weekly listeners get an exclusive discount. Just head to securityweekly.com/Octane to register and use the promo code OKTNSCMA25 to get your conference pass for $200. Coming to you live from the Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly, episode number 890, being recorded on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined in studio by Mr. Larry Pesce.
Yay!
Welcome.
I made it.
Hey, we're podcasting.
It's been a week.
I got a cigar. I got some bourbon.
I had
I'm ready to rock.
I had a
and roll.
fun ride on the way down here.
You did. You drove your top. You drove here topless.
I did.
Actually.
I did.
Yes.
And windowless.
The car was topless.
Yeah,
Not Larry.
all right.
And I mean, unless Larry was too.
It wasn't.
I don't ask those kind of questions. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Good evening. Glad to be here with you.
Live from the front porch, Mr. Jeff Mann. Welcome, Jeff.
It's a beautiful evening here on the front porch, and I do enjoy my time out here. I got my cigar. I've got rye, and let's do it.
We're ready to rock and roll. Quick announcement. Join us at InfoSec World 2025, October 27th through the 29th at Disney's Coronado Springs Resort in Lake Buena Vista, Florida, with pre-event workshops October 25th through the 26th and post-event workshops October 29th through the 30th. Connect, learn, and level up your cyber game. Save 25% now with the code ISW25-SW at securityweekly.com/ISW 2025. Also, don't forget to join us live every Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, securityweekly.com/Discord. The PSW channel in there has the live stream link so you can watch us live. If you're not on our Discord server, that securityweekly.com/Discord is an invite to the server.
Yay.
All righty. On to Mr. Lee Neely joining us. Lee, welcome to the show. I don't think he's got his headphones. Hi, Shell.
Get a room, you two.
Yeah, right. He's getting hugs and kisses from the wife. It's epic. Lee, you're on mute. I don't know if that's on purpose. All right, we'll bring Leon in. Is he there? Lee, you there? No,
Nope.
he's not there yet. Okay, we'll give
All
Lee
right.
a moment and dive right into. Well, you want to start with my blog post? I mean, it's right there.
Actually,
no?
the one I really want to talk to
Okay.
real quick, just because I know we didn't have it at the beginning, and it can be a real quick one.
Sure.
Is Jeff's stories number 6 and 7? Because
Google
Google issues a worldwide Gmail data breach warning, followed by Google confirms Gmail data breach warning is fake news. So which is it, Jeff?
Which is it? What did they do now? Or
what
not
didn't
do?
they do?
Well, the word went out on social media that Google had issued this global warning, and then Google said it really didn't happen. What I think is happening, what the article suggests, is that maybe this is sort of trying to grease the skids for phishing attacks. Put out a notice that you need to change your Gmail password, and then all of a sudden you're getting, I guess technically it's a vishing, maybe a smishing as well as phishing attack. But you get somebody contacting you, hey, you need to change your Google. Did you hear the news? We'll be happy to help you, and you've been pwned. I think that's which is just another interesting wrinkle on how creative the bad guys are getting with this stuff.
Right. Anytime I need to like authenticate or re-authenticate to Google, something pops something up. I'm like, nope. I'm going somewhere else.
Right to Google.com.
Going right to Google, authenticating, and then doing the thing. I don't like entering my password in any pop-up boxes. It will legitimately do that, but also illegitimately do that. To your point, Jeff. Yeah. So
I mean, I got a fairly creative one just this past week. I was on travel, and I want to say it was a text. I don't even remember what the format was, but it was from Amex saying, we've seen some strange activity and suspended your account. Let's get, we need to contact you to confirm some things. And I'm like, I was on travel. I'm like, okay, this could be real. And I clicked the link, and it immediately popped up, login, put in all your credentials. I'm like, nope, not going there.
Yep. Is Lee Neely with us? Can we hear? He's on mute now. You with us, Lee? Can you hear? He can't hear us. Okay.
He's not there yet.
Still working on it. I wrote an article that I wanted to talk about. And where is that? Larry, you had it as one of your stories, which is nice.
Which one is this one?
My story number 4, end-of-life devices. Exploits will continue
until security improves.
Until security improves. This is kind of me stringing together like a couple of stories and putting together a narrative and really kind of digging into just why attackers are going after this end-of-life gear. I think we understand why gear is end-of-life. But now attackers, and I have 2 instances that show 2 different groups. I think one specific to Russian threat actors, and one that I don't think they attributed to any particular group. The first one was hack Cisco Linksys and Arachnus routers, which are interesting. They're kind of like all like small business Soho.
Yep. And or likely ones provided by the provider.
ISP
right.
In the Arachnus case, sure. But in the cases of Cisco and Linksys, it was like their small business gear. It's Linksys. I don't know if they're still supported or not on the Linksys front. There was a couple of different models in there.
Yep.
And I kind of dig into like my Dusty Corner story, right? Like very early on when I was consulting, a friend of mine was like, dude, if you want to get into a place, like go just tell them you got to go clean out the dusty corners, like the areas of the systems and network that have been neglected, that nobody has time for, that could be a problem someday, but they're just like low priority or they're just not paying attention to it. Go clean that up. Now he was talking about it in like an IT consultancy light, but it also is very applicable to security. If you were to go clean up the dusty corners in security, what would that look like? It would look like end-of-life devices, legacy gear, that kind of stuff. And it turns out that that's where attackers are dwelling today. Those two cases I list in the article are very much attackers going after end-of-life gear, and specifically end-of-life IoT and enterprise networking gear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of obvious why that's fruitful for attackers. Like, one, no one's really looking. We don't have great tools to give us great visibility.
Yep.
Two, there's vulnerabilities there that aren't going to get fixed because there's no patch
right,
from
because they've been end of life, and likely end of support as well. And
then
every once in a while, a vendor will release something out of cycle. But
sure,
but if you're that far behind,
yeah. And then those vulnerabilities get exploits for them, and they pop the system, and there's no active user on them. Like we've said years ago, there's no monitor, mouse, keyboard active user.
Yep.
Can't really put EDR on a lot of these devices.
None of these devices.
Yeah, like none of them. And so then attackers are like, well, wait, there's vulnerabilities that won't get fixed. No one's paying attention, and there's not great visibility. Well, this is where I'm going to live. And that was the point of the title. Like, this is going to continue until we fix this problem.
Right. Oh, and not to mention that these devices that are at end of life and so forth are of the age that there's no automatic updates. Like some of our newer stuff is like seeing automatic updates. But so no way to push patches to them, even if they were out of cycle, nothing.
Some of them are running legacy protocols, as is the case with Cisco. They're running older versions of SNMP that are not secure.
Yep.
So one interesting segue that I haven't really written about yet. So I linked to in the article. You can read the article. But one thing that was astonishing to me was SISA came out with the Salt Typhoon guidance. And I should have linked to that in the show. I think I linked to it in the blog post. And it was the first very detailed account of the TTPs that were in use by Salt Typhoon. Now, observant readers and listeners that read the Static Tundra report from Cisco Talos, I believe that was Cisco Talos, that wrote that up, or it was Unit 42. It was one of them. So another group wrote up Static Tundra, which is a Russian group.
Mm-hmm.
There are similarities in the way the two groups operate. They both use SNMP to reconfigure the router and do certain things. They both leverage a vulnerability from 2018 in Cisco Smart Install. And the recommendation from Cisco really struck me. This almost makes me depressed, because in the Cisco recommendation, so there's two things. In the SISA recommendation, they recommend you should use TACAX Plus as your central AAA server, so that because the attackers are using like recycling passwords and things like that. And so you should have like an actual username and a password that should be from a central AAA authentication, authorization, and access. Is that what AAA stands for? Server. And I'm like, hold on a minute. Like, I wrote a paper about implementing TACAX on Cisco devices.
I remember
and
this.
I was telling my coworker, I'm like, dude, I wrote that paper like more than 20 years ago. And he's like, no, he's like, can you find it? And I couldn't find the actual paper, but I found a Sans page that is like the headline of my paper and an abstract.
Yep.
But the link to the PDF doesn't work anymore.
Oh, you should check the Internet Archive.
Yeah, I think I did. And that link is just gone. And I don't know if it archived the PDF. But in that paper is titled something like Implementing TACAX Plus for Cisco Gear for Central Authentication. Do you know when I wrote that paper? It's May of 2003.
It's 22 years ago.
22 years ago. And fast forward 22 years, and Cis is like, you should really have TACAX Plus. I'm like, well, no one read my paper from 22 years ago, apparently, where I not only recommended that you use it, but I showed you how to set it up. Probably not applicable today. Then Cisco runs an article, and in the Cisco article, they're talking about Salt Typhoon and TACAX specifically. And they state TACAX is not, in most previous iterations, like up to a certain point for the past 20 plus years, TACAX is not an end-to-end encrypted protocol.
Right.
Which means your username, your encrypted password, your commands, and a whole bunch of all the other stuff is transmitted in clear text between the server.
Not to nitpick, Paul, but hashed password, not encrypted.
Hashed password, yes, correct. And the hashes can be pretty. So what attackers, I believe, were doing in Salt Typhoon Jeff, was taking the hash and cracking the hash. Thank you. Yes, it's correct terminology.
Well,
right? Because they can sniff it off the network. So Cisco's like, hey, after this particular version of Cisco Smart Install, which must be their central TACAX server, because you can do TACAX like open source version of TACAX, I think is what I wrote about in 2003. They're like, this new version does the end-to-end encryption, and you should use that to combat things like Salt Typhoon. So here we are.
I'm thinking the name Salt Typhoon might be a play on they were exploiting salted hashes.
No, I'm not sure.
Or just coincidence, or is it coincidence?
I think it was it would be Microsoft, right? Because Microsoft names threat actor groups after weather.
Weather, yep. Because it was the Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon and
Flask Typhoon. There was a Flask Typhoon or something. Flask. Something like that.
But
hello,
hey,
part
how's
of
it going,
that
Lee?
guidance, it's going great now that I got all the technology bits lined up. The part of the bit the use TACAX Plus was also don't use local passwords on on those devices. Get away from them. Any way possible. Hence the TACAX. But
the reason for the local passwords are bad is because your password hash is in the config, and if attackers have access in SNMP and they're just dumping the config, then they can just dump the hash that way.
Yep.
Whereas if you use TACAX, it goes to the central server to do the authentication, and therefore it's not stored on the router. It also gives you the capability to do a username and a password.
Yep. And then
which is not two-factor authentication, by the way, but better than just having to enter one password. At least they would also need the username, except
user isn't clear.
And so are they recommending like NIS Plus to go with the TACAX Plus?
Probably Radius.
Oh, come on.
With
Can't we just go back to NIS?
It is Radius. Yeah. It is
Well, I wanted to go back to Yellow Pages, but
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Was there? I did think there was a Radius component to TACAX. Or I think you could do Radius, and you could tie Radius into your central
I think it had some
LDAP.
pluggable modules that let you do Radius.
Like so, if you had a central directory server, conceivably you could make those credentials valid on your Cisco devices. Because I think I did have to do something with Radius.
You can tie Radius to Active Directory or LDAP or whatever directory structure you're using, and do it that way.
And then conceivably, you could add multi-factor authentication. I would imagine. I don't think I didn't do that in 2003,
right?
But I would think today it would. That's likely, more than likely, it's supported.
You know why you didn't do it in 2003?
Two-factor authentication wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing.
Yes, it
was
was
a thing, right?
The first it was a thing. But it wasn't required, and it wasn't spelled out in this document until 2004. And the preferred
I would
method,
do a disservice to my buddies who implemented two-factor authentication in 1998. And while their peer systems were getting compromised, they were not for 20-odd years.
And also, I don't get great answers when I ask how people are managing their enterprise network here. Like, what is doing the firmware checking? I know some groups will run vulnerability scanners against them, like centralized VM things. Some people will do configuration checking, perhaps maybe authenticated scanning if it's supported. You can do that with your VM tooling.
But Bob, Paul, if Nessus was pointing at an end of life, end of service network gear, what's it going to tell you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff.
It's going to tell you this is end of life, end of service, and it moves on. It doesn't give you any other vulnerability information.
But then you should be able to, if it does that accurately across multiple products, I commend them for that. I think we need that. But there also needs to be like a report that you can send to people. So if you run a scan across your whole network, let's say you have 10,000 Cisco devices and 1,500 are end of life. I should get a report that tells me this should be a critical finding in my opinion. I think that's where maybe some of the discrepancies are, is what level finding is it? I want an end of life device support. I want to know out of my fleet of 10,000 Cisco devices, which ones are end of life, because that's probably what I need to pay attention to the most, or at least something super important, because the devices aren't getting patches and they need to be replaced. They can't be upgraded, so they need to be replaced.
Yep.
Yeah.
Time and time again.
But trying to keep track of what's end of life and what is not is super hard. And now then you got vendors that should make this data available and make it scrapable, so or at least provide a computer readable form of that data.
Yep.
Like there should be an RSS feed or JSON files or something that we could just go grab, right? And go and
Jeff's got a comment, and then I want one here.
But like we should be able to consume this data.
I could have gone
in a
after
programmable
you, Larry,
fashion.
But
right,
it's
and so that defenders can have a list, an always updated list of what's end of life. Like that would be super useful. In fact, for the vendors that are selling hardware and software like Cisco, it's in their benefit. If you make it easier for me to understand what's end of life, I'm gonna go spend more money with you. Well, the danger is I might go spend money with someone else.
Maybe.
Well, because this is something
if I'm a Cisco
I have
shop, I'm going to go buy new Cisco gear.
Yeah.
And if I know it's end of life more easily, I'm going to go buy more Cisco gear. And I'm going to give more money to Cisco.
Jeff.
Paul, stop.
Sorry,
because this is something I have to check for PCI. Most of the major vendors, you sometimes have to hunt for it, but they will have somewhere a list of all their versions and what's end of life, end of service dates, and what's available. I mean, I'm going through that with a client right now. But my original point that I wanted to add is this is such an important point that Paul is making about there should be a way of you should be tracking end of life, end of service equipment systems in your environment. It's so important that is actually now a requirement in the PCI data security standard as a version 4. You have to have some sort of process in place that does just that.
Interesting.
Right. But I want it to be, I understand that you can go do it manually. You can say, hey, I've got this one Cisco device. I'm going to log into it. I'm going to get the version information, the model. Then I'm going to go to Cisco's website. I'm going to go plug all that in. And then I'm going to go read and then determine, is it end of life? Is it end of support? Is it end of software? Like, what is the end? There's a lot of end of that means different things. Is my hardware end of life? Is my software end of life? And there's a lot of digging. What I want is an automatable, repeatable process that can query your environment and then query something else and then give me a list to go, yep.
We've got it. Sample. It's in Run Zero. Run Zero does this. It identifies your end-of-life devices automatically.
Awesome.
There you go.
And they say they query the vendors' lists for major vendors, and they build it in. So I haven't tried it.
They have headaches like the rest of us vendors do in trying to get that information. I'm told that there are some vendors that use some kind of AI to poison the data, to create fake entries, to dissuade people from using bots essentially to scrape and crawl the website. And I don't think this is the place we need to be. This is information, again, that helps everyone. By impeding our access to it, you're not helping anyone but the attackers in this case.
Now, I want to throw a little bit of this argument out the window. Jeff got to go. My turn now.
Jeff, you're out. Larry's in. Tag.
I mean, I love this idea of being able to have this human readable, and you've got to go do these things, and you need to be able to monitor what's on your, what's end of life and so forth. But in the cases that we're seeing, like that we were discussing about the article, like Volt Typhoon and a bunch of these other things that we're seeing with all of these other end-of-life devices, they are small to medium business and consumer gear. And these are likely in networks that people don't give a rat's ass.
Right. Also from the vendor.
Or care or know, but mom has this thing plugged in and she has internet and it works. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And mom is the one that got pwned. And
that's the other part attackers are preying on. If they're not lurking in telecommunications networks as a part of Salt Typhoon, there's other campaigns where I think one of them I covered in my article was they compromised 2,000 systems and mostly consumer small business gear where no one's paying attention.
And we're likely stupidly configured because they exposed admin interfaces to
and they're not updating. Even if they aren't end of life, they're not applying firmware updates to them. So it's ripe for the taking. And then once I've got a botnet of 2,000 systems, now I can scan the entire internet continuously and look for things with my brand new shiny botnet of 2,000 systems and find and find more and launch attacks and the whole thing.
Yep.
You left something out, Larry.
Oh.
You left out with that small business and home user the recurring belief that there's nothing on their systems that is of value.
Yep. And back to some of the stuff we used to say in the wireless class. Everybody's got something you want, whether that's disk space, bandwidth, or I can't remember what the other one, but disk space and bandwidth.
Or compute cycles.
Oh, compute cycles. Yep. And like,
yeah, you nailed it.
Yep. Your other one, like you got bandwidth and you've got not disk space, you got bandwidth. That's
right.
But it's also hard to contact these folks and tell them their end of life if they're not engaged with the device.
Yep.
The best the manufacturer can do is issue something on their website, send their customer base emails.
Only if the customer base has registered their product.
Correct. That's the other thing.
When was the last time you registered your home firewall?
Right. I mean, but in enterprise, if you've got an enterprise support contract, like you're registering your stuff because you need ongoing support. But when you step out of that world, it's super hard. Even if you put something in the interface, if it was automatically looking for firmware updates, conceivably the manufacturer could send down an update that says, hey, put something on the screen that says this device is end of life. It is no longer supported. And that happens in some products.
If you're a small business and you've got an enterprise support contract, you're probably a little bit more tuned in as to whether your device is out of date or so. This is not the same market.
I'm a small business. I've got one of those Linksys LRT devices. They're gigabit. I've dropped it in my local law firm or whatever, and it works. And no one looks at it. No one's logging into the device.
It works.
No one's getting emails that say your device is end of life. They do. They're deleting them. It goes to spam.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And
you're calling your local IT support person to fix something, and they go, "Oh, yeah, this is device of end of life. You should probably replace this soon."
We'll find budget for that.
Yeah, is it still working? Is it still working? Yeah, it's still working. It's still working great. That's the conversation right there.
And then you opened a branch office, and your partner went down to the local Best Buy and picked up a D-Link. Because you could get it for $49.95 and it just worked.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, hopefully Netgear's out of all of them that you could go down to Best Buy and purchase, Netgear's kind of tops on my list right now.
And by the way, that wasn't an anti-Netgear comment at all. It's just they pick what they know.
Yep. Yeah. D-Link, Netgear.
D-Link would be like my last choice. TP-Link actually would be up there because they're really paying attention to security now.
They're getting their their shit together.
They're getting their shit together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though you had a TP-Link story, Sam.
Yeah, I'm just looking for it. Yeah, that's right. TP-Link was warned a year ago to patch a vulnerability in the routers, and they didn't pay attention. So now it's a 0-day. So I'm not so sure they're paying attention like they should be.
I don't know. I look at a lot of those. There's a lot of exploits on GitHub.
Ooh, okay.
That get published for IoT devices. And like really I don't want to say at low end, but inexpensive IoT devices that D-Link, TP-Link, Netgear, Linksys, the whole gamut, right? They all make like in a race to go, what can we make like the cheapest gear for people to buy? And I mean, no shade on them. Like you got to make a business. There is a market for people that just want a basic device that's inexpensive. And as so many of those devices have become end of life, now it's like ripe for the picking. And there's a bunch of seemingly random GitHub accounts that are posting exploits for vulnerabilities on these platforms, largely for firmware that has associated with hardware that's end of life. Some of it is for supported gear, but like your mileage kind of varies as to the quality of the security research in exploits. Some of them I look at and I'm like, I think I can reproduce that, and I do, and I'm like, okay, well that one works. That's interesting. Other times I look at it and I'm like, I don't think you have a working exploit. Like you haven't proven to me that you do. And this is happening again across multiple manufacturers for all kinds of different firmware versions.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how old these versions are. He has a bunch of devices that are vulnerable, but I don't know if they're out of support or not.
I mean, the work it would take to validate all of these exploits is significant. Larry and I were just having a conversation earlier about if you're running the firmware in emulation versus running it on actual hardware, how does that impact your exploitation? Right? Like, does it not work in emulation and works on the actual device, or vice versa? Both of those scenarios have to be tested. And some of these things, like, good luck finding. I mean, I guess you go to eBay and probably find just about any one of these devices to go test. But if you're looking for a very specific model, maybe you have specific firmware and you're looking for a specific model, maybe you find it, maybe you don't. But more than often than not, you probably would, right? So, but you got to test this stuff.
All right.
We covered shit that was like, oh, as you know, researchers said they had an exploit. It works. They showed it. They emulated the firmware in QEMU, but on an actual device, NVRAM looks differently, and therefore the exploit doesn't work. We covered that story. I don't know how long ago.
All right. I'm going to claim, and based on the write-up here, I'm going to claim a little bit of bullshit.
For the Sam's TP-Link story?
Yep. Because
lay it out for us.
You scroll down to the 0-day disclosure timeline. Discovery date, January 2025 through automated analysis. Vendor notification, May 11th, 2024. So they discovered the vulnerability, went back in time by 8 months, and notified the vendor.
Yeah.
Also,
is this the whole disclosure in this?
Yep.
Article?
Scroll up a little bit more. Keep going. Right about there. 0-day disclosure timeline. Discovery date, January 2025. Vendor notification, May 11th, 2024.
Oh, what is it?
Current status, unpatched. I can neither confirm nor deny. I will issue the Glomar response. And if you usually understand about the Glomar response, that something is hinky.
I've not validated this one.
Yeah,
Is it possible it's just a typo?
It could be a typo.
That May date is all over the place.
Yep, but the discovery date in January. I mean,
that must be the mistake. Maybe they found it some other way earlier, but yeah, it's not clear.
I mean, even if they discovered it in January of 2024, they sat on it for what?
3 months.
3 months?
4 months.
Well, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if you scroll one of their screenshots, it's got a bunch of 2025 dates in it. Not a screenshot, but it's got a...
so let's say they discovered it in January 2025. Yep. They disclosed it on May 11th, 2025 instead of 2024. Like, why the gap in time?
Yeah.
Once you discover it, you should disclose it.
Well, it's 3 months versus, 15, which is a little better.
Yeah.
But still,
I mean, I could understand the 3. I can understand the 3 month where they, find something that's unusual, and then it takes some time to get back to it. Maybe this isn't their full-time gig, and it's like a little hobby. And hey, I remember that thing that I found like a month and a half ago, and then they maybe take some, a month of Sundays to figure out how to turn it into, buffer overflow type deal. So, I mean, I can kind of get that. They say the original discovery was in, and then the vendor was notified after a full working exploit. I mean, that I can kind of get, but still,
they're not actually showing a command being run. They're showing a segmentation fault and then some other hand waving, and they're like, "Oh, a payload of 3,108 A's plus BBB successfully demonstrates control over the PC register." Like, oh, okay, but show me you were able to run a command on it.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I mean, I think that's probably close enough without revealing too much.
Sure, I mean, they could be, yeah. They're saying it's a start end copy without proper bounds checking, which highly suspicious and likely to be an overflow. But again, is it really weaponizable is what they haven't proven here.
Yep.
Well, they claim they have a working proof of concept.
Yep, but is that working proof of concept what they displayed in the page? No, right. and that's okay. That's okay.
I mean, these aren't super new devices because they're Wi-Fi 6 and everybody's selling Wi-Fi 7 now.
Yep.
That's not a slight on TP-Link, by the way. I'm just thinking, and it looks like these are like $80 devices, so they're definitely targeting at the Soho market.
Well, I mean, and if the code is associated with TR069, which is that WAN management protocol, that's been suspect before. That doesn't, the research. This research details discovery analysis of a previously unknown stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability. Yeah, but you're still going to show that you can actually exploit it to do something, not just cause it to crash. I mean, maybe it's a denial of service versus remote command execution, and that's that matters, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, and if you roll the Wayback Machine a few minutes in our conversation, these guys are targeted right in the we're unlikely to get patched zone of our user of the user base, right?
Right. I mean,
whether
also,
they add a fix or not.
And also the fact that it comes from a Medium blog, which is also suspect. But
yeah, well, I'm a big fan of this level of router having automatic patching and updating. Don't rely on us. And oh, by the way, don't do default passwords. But I know that's a little bit of a pipe dream. I get that, but you could get those things. I think it'd go a long way. It doesn't have to be a huge bar for the home user just to have things set for them. I'm hoping it's only a couple of models and it's not widespread, but whatever. Yeah.
Tracking this landscape now could be like a full-time job, just like monitoring all the new exploits that come out for all these older IoT devices and validating it. And I will say, in defense of the manufacturer, some of these reports are super sketchy. And I don't buy it. Others I read, I'm like, that's super accurate.
Yep.
Right.
And specifically in this one, I think this one may have been patched, but I'm not positive. So,
yeah. Here's my thought that I didn't put in the article.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, look at how much it's costing us by using the end of life gear, right? We've got attackers that are profiting. We've got all these attacks, Sol Typhoon, many other campaigns utilizing this. Companies suffering denial of service attacks, other attacks. The monetary damage that's being done by these end-of-life devices that have these unpatched vulnerabilities. I mean, if someone could put a number on it, I think that would be interesting research. I bet that number would be pretty high. If you were to calculate damages incurred from cybersecurity attacks against end-of-life, even just IoT devices. Now, compare that with what it would cost to just go issue patches and fix this stuff. I understand there is a cost, right? And that's why they don't do it. They have to cut their losses. They have to move on. I understand. I get it. I work for a software company. But I get it.
But the problem is that, it will cost significantly less for a manufacturer to develop a patch to go patch these devices.
It costs the manufacturer the money,
right? So,
not everyone else.
It costs the manufacturer money. It costs the manufacturer not a ton of money, maybe $100,000 at most to go develop one of these patches and put it on and regression test it and all this type of stuff. The point being is the people that have these
they won't apply it.
They're not going to apply it. So what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the other options is that maybe we start including, and I'm going to talk myself out of this real quick. So let me go with it. We include detonation dates on our devices. End of life for this is 5 years from date of purchase. So when it turns on, when you turn it on and you plug it in for the first time, it sets a counter. It sets a detonation date on a file on the system, and then it grenades itself at the end of 5 years. But then you put this in a highly sensitive network like a medical office, and it grenades, and then who's getting sued?
Right. It's a liability to do that. Totally. I think I would buy from the device manufacturer that said, look, where this device is going to have a lifespan of X number of years. After such time, if there is a provable remote code execution exploit for it, we will issue a patch for that for X number of years after that, right? That to me would be a good middle ground. Like, I hate middle ground. I hate making concessions because both sides end up losing something. But that would be a logical solution. Be like, all right, you know what? If it's really bad, and we've got ways to test with like an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability. They even put it down to a class, like denial of service, whatever, like you're on your own. Go upgrade. But if it's giving attackers a foothold, issue a patch for it.
And some manufacturers do that. I know there's one manufacturer that I work with quite regularly that this exact scenario happened. There was a vulnerability reported for a device that was end of life. they saw that it was serious. They released a patch, and then it became these same devices became members of botnet because they were exploited because the patches weren't deployed.
No one deployed the patches.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I wouldn't say
stuff,
I wouldn't say no one,
but not
there were
enough.
still thousands of devices directly connected to the internet
Right.
with poor configurations because most of the attacks that we're seeing all require either some sort of local access to get access to the web portal on the device itself, which are only available on the internal network.
Right.
So they either have had to compromise something on the internal network to get there, which means you've got bigger problems, or in the case of something like a home firewall or a small business firewall, that remote administration interface needs to be exposed to the internet, which is horrible in its own right.
Or just put a back door in so you can auto update as long as it's internet reachable.
Oh man,
Nothing could go
then
wrong
you've got
there.
a back door, Jeff.
Yeah. Well, Larry, what about just having it beep like a smoke alarm when it hits the end of life? It keeps working, but it annoys you.
I would be happy with that, but there's probably there's no speakers in half of these devices.
It wouldn't cost.
There's
too
other
much
ways
to
of
add
making
that.
noise, though. What's that?
It wouldn't
Can't we
cost
just
too much to
release
add
the
that.
magic smoke when they're end of life?
Yeah, just make it.
Well,
work.
again, there's liability with that.
Just make it work make it work 5 out of every 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
So-
4.
I was doing a little digging on the AX10. There is a firmware version that is newer than the vulnerable ones they list,
Right.
and it is one of its in-depth descriptions of what it is says fixed the bug that they basically added some security fixes. Okay.
You do see that
It's
as well,
like-
Lee. It's a great point. You see a lot of this, and again, it mostly is people with a GitHub account that are publishing exploits for a particular firmware version. And they don't tell you that it's not the latest firmware version in there. They're just like, oh, I found a 0-day vulnerability. Like, look at me. I want a CVE to my name. I want to publish this exploit as crappy as it is, but it's not for the latest firmware.
And in this case, they're specifically they didn't specifically say it was the latest, but they are specifically saying that there was no patch issue.
Yeah, there was no patch.
Exactly.
If they had said it was for these particular versions and hardware versions, we'd be good because there's a newer version.
But we still
Back to most people don't upgrade.
better.
So if I found it in an older version, it's probably.
Well, I was going to say,
living
Paul,
on
I
the
mean, we
internet.
started this conversation with talking about end of life, hardware, which is kind of the whole point. So good for them that they're looking for stuff in old versions.
So you remember they were talking about rolling up a sort of a security label for consumer electronics that included things like EOL dates. That hasn't rolled out yet, has it?
Yeah,
But
updating, Lee, that's called cyber trust mark here in the U.S.
Right. I couldn't remember it to save my life, but thank you.
Yeah, and also, and given the current administration in the U.S., that is very unlikely, or we're seeing that it's very unlikely.
The political
cyber trust mark
climate isn't there anymore.
will ever see the day of light.
Here's the thing,
It did roll out in Germany,
Updating shit can cause negative consequences, and I want to go to my story number 14. You can't project what you can't see. Everyone knows that, right? That's why Run Zero gives you total visibility across your internal and external attack surfaces. Worried about unknown and unmanageable devices? They got those covered too. Run Zero also helps you illuminate all types of exposures, even the elusive ones. They go beyond CVEs to tackle the hard stuff, even 0 days. No agents, no authentication, just crazy deep data about your assets and exposures that focus on the risks that actually matter, not an endless sea of CVEs. Try it free. Visit securityweekly.com/run zero to get started. Whenever we talk to security teams, one thing is clear. They are under more pressure than ever, facing increasingly complex and higher stakes threats. That's where Flashpoint comes in. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions to keep their people and assets safe. Flashpoint combines cutting-edge technology with expert intelligence teams, empowering security leaders with the critical data and alerts and analysis needed to act before threats escalate. And with Ignite, Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to real-time insights, finished intelligence, and analytics all in one place. Learn more at securityweekly.com/flashpoint.
Oh, I thought it was going to be 13.
So, no, I'm not there yet. But my story number 14 is super interesting. So, when you do updates, the worst possible scenario is you break shit. If you break shit in this way, like it literally is the worst, one of the worst possible cases for you. So, we back up a moment and tell you how option ROMs work. So when UEFI is initializing the hardware and booting up the system,
Here we go, UEFI again. Jeff, PCI.
For the record, we did not talk UEFI last week at all. So Paul's got to make up for it.
Took a
He's
break.
got to buy, right?
But this is super cool. So, or not, depending on your perspective,
right?
So an option run. So UEFI is booting up. It's initializing all the hardware. Well, it can't possibly know how to load every single piece of hardware on the planet, right? And it's again, it's just initializing it enough, bringing it up enough, configuring it enough to pass it off to the operating system, where the operating system will load its device drivers. So when I say drivers in this context, these are early stage drivers called Dixie drivers, driver execution environment, right, in UEFI. So, for example, UEFI is coming up. What's the first thing you see on the screen when you boot up your computer? It's like your BIOS splash screen. And you may have wondered at some point, how does my BIOS know how to talk to the graphics card to display shit on the screen? Well, it can't possibly have every graphics card, driver or some code for every graphics card on the planet. What it does is it boots up and it goes, oh, you're my graphics card. I need to know how to load you. And that's when an option ROM comes in. So the graphics card has a firmware or Dixie driver on it called an option ROM. And it goes, oh, I can help you out with that, UEFI. You don't know how to load me. Here's some code that you can run so that you know how to display shit on the screen. And UEFI goes, great. And if secure boot's enabled, that option ROM from that device or peripheral has to be signed. Secure boot has to go, oh, this is code. Am I supposed to run this code or not? Has to pass valid secure boot checks.
They should call that the Normus option ROM.
Normus?
Yeah.
Enormous?
No, just Normus.
Normus.
Because if it's the Dixie option ROM.
Yes. Dixie Enormous. I get it now. What will happen in June of 2026 is there is a secure boot certificate that is expiring. So if your option ROM on your graphics card, for example, they call that a GOP. I forget what GOP stands for, but it's basically the option ROM on your graphics card. If that's been signed with the old cert and you load the new cert on there, UEFI is going to start up and it's going to go, well, shit, I got to know how to display shit on the screen. I want to go to my graphics card. I want to load that driver. And Secure Boot's going to go, you can't load that driver because it's not signed.
Charge.
And the user's going to be staring at a blank screen. And if you want to go in and disable Secure Boot after that, good luck, because you can't get into your BIOS because you have no graphics card driver.
Yeah, you need to whip out one of those really old graphics cards that doesn't support it's just like a VGA.
Like VGA.
So I would venture to guess that UEFI maybe has some stock graphics cards, to your point, drivers, to your point, Larry, that it doesn't need to load an option ROM for. And that would be a good scenario. Maybe like your onboard one would load, but your external graphics card wouldn't. I don't know. I'm just speculating and guessing that's how it works. So it's a very scary scenario. You're being a good doobie. I'm updating my secure boot, updated my certificates. Certificates are expiring. I'm getting new ones. And now your system isn't bootable. I'm not sure if that happens in all the cases. I'm not aware of any failure modes or fallbacks when that situation occurs. If our listeners do, please tell me. This is just like, it's basically a Reddit thread. There's not a whole lot that was published on that. I did chat briefly with some of my coworkers at Eclipsium and agreed like this could be a bad day. And in fact, I believe we're working on checks to identify this scenario, not just with graphics cards, but with other things like what's not going to look like, what isn't signed with what you have on the system is a great question, right? So I hope this, like next June, when we're talking about this, we're not covering articles where people are like, I'm locked out of my system, because so many more people are enabling secure boot so they can play video games, because video games like Battlefield 6 are requiring secure boot on your system. So now all these people, especially through Christmas, right, they're all going to be getting new computers, new video games. They're going to be enabling more secure boot because the anti-cheat needs secure boot in order to operate for you to play the game. And then June's going to roll around and hopefully we don't have a bunch of brick systems. I mean, there are more, if I play scenarios out in my head, conceivably, if you were good with a spy flash programmer, you could overwrite. I'm speculating here. I believe it's possible you could overwrite the variable that controls secure boot to turn it off with a spy flash programmer, but I haven't fact checked that with my coworkers. But I'm fairly certain that would be the case. And your mileage is probably going to vary, maybe not on all systems. But I think it directly connected to the spy flash. If you were able to manipulate a variable, I've not done that before, but conceivably it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not most. It's not most users. That's
Can we shift gears?
Larry sent me down the rabbit hole with the.
Jeff's heard enough
VGA.
about UEFI. That's it.
No,
Jeff's
do you remember what?
Jeff's like, you said UEFI. That's it.
To
We're done.
VGA was and when?
Oh, say that again, Lee.
Remember when VGA came out
No,
and what was before it?
PGA.
CGA was before it, or no, EGA was before it.
Both, yes, EGA and CGA.
Yep.
VGA came out in '87 with the PS2.
Oof.
Anybody feeling young?
No.
I remember those things, and I remember they had them damn VGA drivers, and you had to make sure you had that on your OS, or it wasn't gonna. Well, you weren't gonna be able to squat on that.
I wonder what
to feel
like I was on an Apple IIe at that point. What was the Apple IIe? Graphics.
Oh gosh,
QEGA.
ADB, whatever
Yeah,
the Apple
Was it
display
an Apple
protocol.
display port?
Yep.
It likely was a proprietary to Apple.
It was.
Yeah,
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
See, around that time, Lee, I think I was buying a hand-me-down computer, so it was a little bit older. And I want to say about 1987. No, 1990. I bought my first IBM compatible computer at the time.
And it probably had VGA. You think?
It had CGA,
CGA.
16 color CGA with dual 5 and a quarter floppies.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were the
it.
cool kid if you
Yep.
had two, because then you
Yep.
could copy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was an
Awesome.
8088
yes,
Right.
screamer at 8 megahertz.
Yep, that was. And if don't let's not even talk about hard disks because those were freaking expensive.
Oh yeah,
at that time.
yeah. Like 2 years later, same computer, I upgraded to a hard drive, and I got it at cost because I knew someone that owned a computer repair shop, and it was a K-Lock. Remember that company?
Ooh.
No, I didn't think it did.
Nope.
33 megabytes, and it was
baby.
$600.
But it's just astonishing when you think about like a Raspberry Pi Zero and how much compute. I mean, we're like, oh, it's not that much compute power, but how much more powerful that is than all the other computers we just talked about.
Yep.
It's pretty, and you can buy those.
It's
boards for
crazy,
next to
isn't it?
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, all those computers were built before catalytic converters, so they ran good on regular gas.
I remember having to do the Polestar on my computer.
man.
Yeah.
But
There's a turbo button.
Every
I was hoping
morning
we
when
could shift
when I logged
gears,
in
Paul.
before there was an internet and no email.
we've spent almost an hour talking about stuff that's mostly consumer oriented, unfixable. What are we going to do about it? And there's some, pretty, significant things happening in the world in terms of breaches.
What do you got,
I
Jeff?
think it's ironic that there's so much happening that the fact that an entire state gets ransomwared is almost backburnered. Like nobody's even interested in talking about that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, people get
It's like,
breached, whatever. Like, it happens.
But I think
Every week people get
most of
breached.
us had stories related to variations on a theme of the Salesloft drift.
Sales lofts. Is that-
Salesloft.
Yep.
It's like a third party vendor. They got popped and got a lot of big companies.
Drift. Yep.
I mean, we
because they
sort of
never-
touched on it a little bit because it was sort of adjacent to the Google
Google
announcement.
thing. Yep.
But
Palo Alto, Zscaler, Cloudflare are hit by the Salesloft breach. Is that what I was saying? Was it Palo Alto was
Yeah,
the big
yeah.
network vendor that got hit, or
Yeah.
was there another one? It was Palo Alto.
that's the one that's in the headlines that is in our news
Yeah,
stories.
Yeah, the one.
Well, they
the
said
one that
the
made it
supply
hit was-
chain attack impacted hundreds of organizations, including Palo Alto Networks.
Right. Yeah, these are just the big names that people recognize, but the
Yeah.
impact is far reaching.
Oh, and of course, Unit 42 wrote it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Being as they're in Palo Alto.
Yeah, the Salesloft can integrate with Salesforce and a whole bunch of other stuff, and Basically, what I understand here is that when they compromised Salesloft, they were able to get authentication tokens to a whole bunch of other services.
Salesforce, yeah.
Salesforce, which is then connected to a whole bunch of other stuff for other services. And
so what is Salesloft?
Salesloft is a
it's a chatbot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's effectively
AI chatbot.
It's an AI
chatbot that can take contents of like marketing type of phone calls and integrate the contents of those calls and the contact people into Salesforce so that you can do sales metrics and tracking and follow-ups and all that type of stuff. So it's effectively an AI chatbot ability to do Salesforce maintenance for ongoing sales efforts.
Maintenance,
and it sounds like the
reporting.
The integration point for Salesforce isn't sufficiently secure or separated, one of the two.
Yeah, Cloudflare said that if you opened a support ticket with them, that was compromised, and if you shared any access tokens or credentials, those were compromised. So they kind of put it on their customers, like, go back to your support tickets, and if you shared anything, you should change those credentials.
Nice.
Yeah, I was interested in how that attack started, and the only thing I could see was they say it all started because they somehow got an API token to get into Salesloft, but they don't say how they got it. But that sort of points out when you use third-party vendors, your attack surface just grows and grows until somewhere somebody is going to leak out.
But no, Sam. You use third parties to pass on the risk of security onto another vendor that specializes in it. That's what it's all about.
Well, if they're smarter than you, it could work out that way. And I've made this argument at my college, but apparently Salesloft was not smarter than everybody. And, they're second and third order third parties. You take a company, unbeknownst to you, they outsource it to somebody else.
Well, back in the early days,
OAuth credentials.
We used to say that you're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And that was all we said about all these third party.
But now we
can't say that anymore because it profiles chains.
But the weakest link in the chain is another organization that's chained to yours that has a chain that somehow in some chain further down the line, a developer left an API token key in a public GitHub repository that an attacker found that used to compromise then ultimately 100 companies that were using Salesloft.
So my question is, and to quote another movie, I forget the name of the character, but the FBI
Hack
guy
the Planet
in National Treasure. No, somebody's got to go to jail.
Somebody's got to go to jail.
Who's getting in trouble for all this? I mean, because this is a cascading breach that keeps on giving.
Well, one thing I'm thinking is if Salesloft was the single point of attack, why didn't they have some kind of separation between the companies using their product? I mean,
but was all the companies' data in the Salesloft back end? Or
apparently it was all accessible from a single API call into Salesloft, and it seems like they could have had that stuff like VLAN, where each customer is somehow segmented.
Should be segmented, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the other problem. It's shared instances, right?
Well, yeah.
What they created is a big shared instance. Nice.
It worked.
Used to lie awake at night worrying about that shit. And like you said, third party risk is.
Third party involvement is the promise of punting security for a lot of my clients.
Hey, Paul, I got one.
Yeah,
risk transfer.
One that you'll like too. Eero.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got it sort of 3 times in my list. Specifically, my story number 3: hacking the Amazon Eero mesh router, disassembly, JTAG brute forcing, and eMMC flash with 32 partitions. And then, of course, in that article, there were links to the 2 parts of the actual write-up. So I found the first article first, shocking. And then there were links to the other 2. And they weren't actually links. You had to copy and paste them. So that's annoying. But amazing write-up.
So hold on. Eero got bought by Amazon?
Yes.
And Eero is the mesh Wi-Fi network. So I don't want to wire my house So I get these 3 Eero devices.
Yep.
And they talk on some kind of wireless backhaul.
Yep.
And provide Wi-Fi to my home, give me great coverage. They work fantastic. I remember when these first came out, all the manufacturers, major manufacturers had offerings. Google, I think Google had one.
Yep.
Linksys has one.
I mean, UEFI,
Amazon bought
the UEFI products do the same
I'm sure
thing.
Ubiquity has similar kind of stuff.
Yeah, they all the manufacturers have something similar.
Well, they're basically Wi-Fi routers. And this person took the Eero device.
Yep, the
and
Eero
decided
6
to do hardware reverse engineering. I'll let Larry explain more, like the hard way.
Yep. Yeah. They wanted to do some hardware engineering, and they loved the first steps that they did.
Not wrong.
No, wrong.
Just you went the uphill both ways in the snow.
Right.
Path.
And they totally did go uphill both ways in the snow. They talk about the disassembly. And then it's like, oh yeah, it looks like there's JTAG. So they soldered a whole bunch of magnet wires to the proposed JTAG port, and then plugged those into, soldered those to a breadboard, and then plugged those into a proto board, and then tried to interface with it. And I'm like, well, one, JTAG is supposed to be really short, and like,
well, also if you've got through holes on your board that represent UR or JTAG, that you'll see it in the pictures. Like I'll pull up in a second, but there's holes on the board. And
they are probably not holes. They're probably surface mount pads.
Oh,
but still,
sometimes they fill the holes.
And those are pads. Those are definitely pads.
Those are pads. But what I've done is I've removed the solder. So if
they're through hole,
if they're through hole, I've cleaned whatever junk they put in or solder they put in them, and then I solder on a header. Headers are great. Like there's standard sizes between the pins.
Yep.
And you can you can even get like big long blocks of them, and you break off 4 of them, and you
this one definitely is not through hole. They're surface mount pads, but you can still get headers if they're appropriate size and put a nice header on that. Yeah, and make your cables nice and short.
Could melt that solder on the pad all the way through, and then put a header on, which is a much better connection in my mind. Is to do, and also through hole soldering is really easy to do in terms of soldering. So if you've got any kind of soldering experience, you can solder a header. I've done that. I think I've shown this in blog posts.
Yep.
I've soldered a header onto a board that gives me UART to the device. Then I can use standard DuPont cables to connect to said header. It's a much better
and then to make in my thing here matters worse. The sort of the theme through these 2 parts of the article is that the person used what they had available to try to do this hackery.
Or what was like really cheap,
or to not spend a lot of money. And one of them here was to use an Arduino Nano RP2040 to do the JTAG brute force. But that also required the use of a logic level shifter. No. So now we're introducing...
What is a logic level
It's
shifter?
effectively converting from 3.3 volts, which is on the Arduino, to 1.8 volts, which is required for JTAG.
Oh, okay.
So
it's kind of like a step up, step down, but in a separate board.
Kind of step up, step down, but because it's logic, it's binary data. They're just doing some switching based on that. And so, go ahead, Lee.
Am I tracking that they then found a serial interface they could just use?
Yeah, they didn't have any luck here. They thought they figured it out. They tried to connect to OpenOCD, and they're not familiar with it, so it didn't work.
Well, by serial, do you mean serial wire debug or SWD, Lee?
I mean, like RS-232,
Oh, no,
that comes later.
Ground.
That'd be UART, yeah.
Yep, that comes later.
Yeah. But also, so when we say JTAG, serial wire debug is like the new version of JTAG.
The ARM version of JTAG, effectively.
Right.
Serial wire debug. Oh. They also tried serial wire debug.
Is that ARM specific?
I didn't know
it was ARM specific.
So. If I remember correctly, it is. So
Raspberry Pi is being ARM. Raspberry Pi makes, if you Google for Raspberry Pi debugger, they make this kit for $12, which I have one of. Larry, I think you said you bought 2, right? It's $12. You get a little Raspberry Pi 2040 board, I believe. A USB cable. It has a plastic case for the board, and 2 DuPont connector wires. I think they're 4-pin JSTs into the debugger, and one is male DuPont, one is female DuPont. It's a great kit for $12. It supports OpenOCD. you could have solved the problem for 12 bucks.
Yep.
And then you've got a great kit that I've used to debug my Raspberry Pis.
Yeah. Well, so to go down the stuff. Oh, he's like, I just used the Seeger J-Link EDU, which is for educational purposes, not for commercial.
Yeah,
and that was £60. And
yeah, dude, why do you
and arguably, he says it still didn't work for either JTAG or SWD. And at this point, I think their decision was, I'm not getting anywhere, so it's time to move on. And it's likely because they were both disabled.
They could be both disabled, or they just weren't applying the right.
They're saying
things,
something right,
voltage or something.
Yep.
Or you fried it somewhere along in the process.
Yep. And then you're right, Lee. The next one they found was serial. Yep. Serial UART. They found that there's U-boot, secure boot was enabled, but they couldn't interrupt the boot sequence and so forth. So that's when you move on to part 2, which is like, okay, well, let's attempt to dump the firmware. So they don't own a hot air rework station. Maybe $100.
Yes, but you can probably get them less than that. I got mine less than that.
Yeah. So let's say you got a decent one, $100 to go remove the EMMC, which they didn't have. So they took it down to a local store. First they tried to find the traces were connected to the EMMC ball grid array chip so they could tap the board, and that didn't work. So then they went down to the local phone repair shop and asked them to just
remove the EMMC.
Remove the EMMC.
I mean, if you don't have a bunch of hacker friends like Larry and I do, like I was like, I'm always like, if I need to get an EMMC of a board, I'm like, hey Larry, do you have like a thing that a thing for this thing that we can use? And I was like, yeah, I'll bring it next week and we do it. Yeah.
So then it was, okay, well, EMMC, they're effectively SD compatible. So he went and soldered a bunch of those magnet wires
to the EMMC,
and to an SD card to micro SD card adapter.
I'm laughing, but that's valid. That could work.
It's pretty cool. Fucking brilliant.
Right. If you have to do that, but I don't think they had to do that, because I would have just, Larry and I popped an EMMC off last year or whatever, right? Or more than a year or 2. I don't know when it was, but I was like, hey, I got this Android TV device. And I was like, watch, hot air rework, remove the chip, take an EMMC reader, put it in there. Oh, it's not making the connection because it's a super pain in the ass to clean all the solder and get the contact points. And Larry ripped off a little piece of a paper plate, put it in the EMMC reader to give it a little more pressure when you clamp it down to make all the contact points hit, and we're able to get a dump of the EMMC.
Yep.
And I'm not saying we're super hackers or whatever, but this is not just based on like what's in Paul and Larry's brains. This is based like there's a lot of information online. I relied on online. I mean, I asked my coworkers, that's a shortcut, but I asked Larry, that's another shortcut. But also, if you research online, there's tutorials to show you how to do all this stuff. Yeah, you can go on YouTube for hours and watch people do this. And
then to make this even more frustrating. Yeah, so they put the ball grid array thing in this adapter that they bought. And then they had to solder from the ball grid adapter thing, because they didn't have the right adapter to plug it into their computer, into a micro SD to USB converter using magnet wires.
There's just look. I applaud the author for showing all.
Oh my word!
Work. This is like when you have to show your work in math and in class.
Oh my gosh!
In school, and they showed all the work, but like I also wish they would have consulted with both Larry and I first and been like, I got this board and I need to, and Larry would have been like, look, like I've got an extra one of these, like I'll ship it to you. Or like, if you don't have a lot of money, it's fine. Like I got extras, I'll ship it to you.
Or go,
and here's the approach that you should take.
Instead of buying the cheap one at £35, buy the $40 or $50 £40 one, and then you plugs in right with SD card into maybe an SD card adapter you already had, because clearly you are already trying to plug an SD card in with the conversion.
And if you're doing all this stuff to learn, I kind of feel like this is stuff you want to do more of, so you should have the appropriate tools that are really not that, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, not that expensive, and it's just going to save you a whole bunch of work. You learned a lot doing all that soldering, and you're better soldering than I am.
Yep.
But that's one of the reasons why I get the right tools, because I suck at soldering.
Yeah. Right. So in the second article, he's got a link of a bunch of stuff there. And I'm saying he, and I don't know he, she, they. Hardware hacking 101, identifying and dumping eMMC flash, hacking hardware with a $10 SD card reader, how to dead bug a BGA flash memory chip.
I've read some of those articles.
That just,
in fact, one of them is from Wrongboard. Wrongboard is a great source for hardware hacking stuff. Yeah.
Rapid 7, lessons in IoT hacking, how to dead bug a BGA flash memory chip. Oh, by Daryl Hyland.
Yeah.
Okay. But still, this sounds fucking painful.
I mean, sometimes you're forced to go through the things that they did on this post, but in looking at the board and what was available, I'm like, you didn't have to do all of that. I mean, I'm sure you learned doing all of that, but you didn't have to do all of that. And if you're doing hardware, I guess the moral of the story is if you're doing hardware hacking, reach out to Larry and I. We're more than happy to provide you with some guidance, tools, tutorials, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't tear your hair out. Contact Paul and Larry.
Don't. I mean, unless you want to learn, which
totally.
I applaud.
Totally.
But do all that and then contact them like you should use this device.
Well,
like also to like debug JTAG. JTagulator was the platform.
Yep. JTagulator has been ported to a whole bunch of other devices.
Other devices.
To be fair,
is pretty. I have a TieGuard. I haven't used it yet, but I'm told that's a pretty good one. I know Bus Pirate will. I don't know if it'll do JTAG fuzzing.
I don't know,
but I know he tried to build that into the firmware and it wasn't super stable yet. But
the other one, if you really want to go stupid simple with this, you pick up an $8 high-let go logic analyzer.
Yes.
And you won't be able to interact with it, but you'll be able to tell that JTAG is there because the name of SIGROC, PulseView, open source.
Oh yeah. I've used PulseView before.
So open source to the logic analyzer.
It'll basically use a logic analyzer to
get the pulses, and then you
capture,
can,
and then analyze.
Yep. Then you can analyze the pulses. Yep.
Right.
Hey, and JTAG is one of their analyzing engines. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And a logic analyzer is just looking at the digital signals coming from a communications port.
Correct.
Whereas an oscilloscope is the analog signals or energy that's coming.
I mean, it would still analyze digital. Stuff.
Right, but there's different. I remember covering the difference between an oscilloscope and a logic analyzer.
Logic analyzer will apply logic to the analysis, where an oscilloscope
to determine, like automatically fuzz and determine what it is. I got you. Hence the logic and analyzing component,
as opposed to the
oscilloscope is just the raw signals.
Yeah.
Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. ThreatLocker's zero trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots, just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock.
Yep. Jeff, you had a comment in there like you were chomping at the bit to say something.
Jeff wants to talk about PCI.
I was just going to say something snarky, but for the first time in my memory, there's an ice cream truck driving up my street. So
did it have eMMC on it?
Let's all go to Jeff's for some ice cream.
Yeah.
There's a correlation between ice cream sales and shark attacks, right? If you track ice cream sales and shark attacks on a line graph, they will track exactly the same. And one could say when you eat a lot of ice cream, like people eat ice cream are more likely to get shark attacks. It turns out,
don't they have to get in the water or something first?
Yeah, but it's a.
It turns out
it's a lesson, but it's an example of the lesson that of like causality and effect.
Yeah,
like just because two things look like they cause each other doesn't mean that they cause each other. It just means that they're related.
Yep.
And it turns out when the weather's warm, people are in the water.
Yep.
And also when it's warm, you're going to eat ice cream.
It's like,
but they don't call like ice cream doesn't cause shark attacks. I feel like there's a lot of parallels into like data we've analyzed for cybersecurity in the same light, and for health, epidemiology, that kind of stuff. People try and draw these conclusions like, like these two data points, they totally track. That must mean that A causes B. It's no, there's some other scientific term for that relationship. That does not mean that like A causes B.
In a similar study, there's a guy been doing this for like something ridiculous, like 20 years, mapping the cost of a slice of New York pizza to a cost of a specific length of ride on the New York subway.
Yeah.
And that the line graph is exactly the same thing: ice cream versus shark attacks.
Yeah. So
And here I am thinking back to the last home game of our local ball team where they were in the stands. You could get all kinds of ice cream flavors. You used to have to go to the corner vendor specifically because they're clearing out their inventory.
Oh.
There was like a dozen instead of the usual 4 flavors or whatever it is. You know, like birthday cake and all kinds of good stuff.
that was an interesting way to derail us from hardware hacking, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's social engineering experiment right there.
And I mean, we're on a food topic. Should we talk lasagna?
I was going to talk about.
Or are we going to save that for last?
A segue though. You mentioned quoting a movie. I don't know what movie you were quoting, to be honest, Jeff.
National Treasure was the last one.
National Treasure. But hackers very recently, or upcoming, I think I put it on my calendar, the 30th anniversary of hackers.
Didn't it happen already, or is it? It's in
I think
September.
it's coming. It's coming up. It's in September. It's coming up because I put. Oh, now it's gonna. Anyway, I can't get into my calendar. I put it on my calendar to remind myself to make a social media post about the movie Hackers on the 30th anniversary of the movie.
I watched that movie again with my granddaughter a few weeks ago, and I know you love the soundtrack. I know I always talk about hackers as it presents the hackers culture, but the hacking is so bad.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I think that
it's so bad.
my firm belief about the movie Hackers is the reason people don't like it is you can't get over the animation. the Hollywood hacking that they introduced, which is almost, it's in one sense it's a shame because so much of the other aspects of the film
are spot on
and accurate. Like they reference real hacker handles, they reference books that are totally real hacker books. Like there's the lingo, the culture. I mean, maybe not so much the rollerblading. That was a little, obviously something for Hollywood. Although, I mean, hackers probably did go on rollerblades in New York City. Maybe not to the extent they did in the movie, but in any case, like so much of the other stuff, like the soundtrack is so awesome. But when they got to actually hacking on a computer,
it was very like us were. It was very
like real hackers like us are like, what is going on?
I mean, even the Gibson. I mean, even to this day, there isn't a mainframe computer.
But they made that
looked like the Gibson.
Look, I'm not going to dissuade people that can't get over those scenes, but the reason those scenes exist is because the writers and directors wanted to go in that direction. That was purposeful on them. They had a team. That's the other thing about hackers. Why I love it. They had actual hackers like Mark Abeen, right? Yep. Being the actual consultants for hacking on the film, which is why so many other things are spot on.
Well, we interviewed John Thread a couple years ago on Security Compliance Weekly.
Some of the hackers.
He was like, "I'm in that movie." Whichever character is supposed to be him. So it was real from that perspective. It was real,
and they pushed for the writers and directors to be like, "Look, this is what real hacking looks like." And basically, the long and the short of it is, they were like, "Well, that's kind of boring. We need to show something." Hollywood with a whole bunch of flair, and we want to take it in a different direction, and that's how we ended up with the hackers that we have today.
Yep.
And that's why, for all those reasons, is why I just appreciate and I kind of giggle at those hacking scenes because that was their mission. They wanted to make it. They didn't want that part to be realistic. They wanted that
to be
part
sexy.
to be sexy and super flouse and Hollywood.
Well, it's not
style,
even sexy. Right? Entertaining. They had to put something on the screen. Because what does it look like to look at? What's it look like to run crack or John the Ripper?
I like Lee's point. People who aren't hackers are watching that movie, going, "Wow, those hacking scenes were really cool." Right? That's probably some of the motivation behind it. Yeah.
I mean, remember Swordfish, and they came up with that Hydra, and they visualized it with 6 or 8 monitors, each with something on it, because that was cool looking.
It was cool looking. There was other scenes in that movie that they did for cinema.
Yeah, but I can't. I mean, I can say that's not real hacking, but I'm not going to fault the filmmaker. I mean,
but in contrast, we like to compete on this informally. what was unrealistic and sensational in terms of the movie Sneakers and the hacking that went on in Sneakers.
The Winnebago.
The blind guy driving the
blind guy driving the van. Yes, I was just going to say that as well.
Oh, no, that's accurate.
But that's
fucking accurate. Did you see what he crashed into?
Actually, the fact that he crashed in all this is probably more.
I think he crashed while he was in overdrive.
Getting the guy to say all the things in his passphrase, my voice is my passport, maybe.
I mean, Sneakers was a lot more realistic in terms of the methodology of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, and ironically, the methodology for many pen testing red teams.
Well, the fact that they had technology, but the fact they had technology that could decrypt anything is really never mind.
Well, that's
with quantum computing, that's exactly what we're talking about. Is the answering machine that had the tech in it that could decrypt anything, right?
You want it? You can have anything in the world, and all you want is my phone number.
Well, then there's that. Yeah, that's kind of unrealistic.
How about a nice
Well, I mean, maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, there is such a thing as love at first sight. I mean, was that River Phoenix? I think
it was.
Here we go, Joshua.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway.
Where to next?
Where was I going? Cootie's Rat Seaman. That's where you're going.
Where was I going with the next ahead? Hackers issue an ultimatum to Google after data breach warning.
Yeah, this is
a really
that was weird.
So apparently, the way I understand the story is that there's a threat actor group out there that had a bone to pick with Google's threat research team.
Yep, specifically these two researchers.
Likely because these two researchers in Google's threat, and what do they call it? Google's threat intelligence team, probably uncovered some tradecraft from this group or outed what they were doing. I'm not sure where this comes from, but the threat actor group is claiming that they've breached some portion of Google, some Google database. I don't think we know exactly what information is in there, or even what information they purport to have,
or if Google's told us it is a hoax,
or if it's just a hoax. But the ultimatum is threat actors are like the extortion part of it is you need to fire these two researchers. Like, we're going to release this data from this purported breach if you don't fire these researchers. Now, what the press is saying is they don't have any, I don't think, much official from Google other than they're aware of the situation and some official PR statement. But the feeling is that Google is just ignoring their request. Thankfully, they're not playing into it or anything like that. So
something you don't deal with terrorists.
Yeah, but that was kind of, is that new? That was kind of new to me that threat actors are demanding that someone be fired. I'm sure that's happened in the past, but I can't think on the top of my head an extortion from threat actors calling for people in that organization to be fired. We've seen hacktivism go after organizations in various ways and just destroying them, like the Sony hack, for example, or the casino hack from Iran, right? That was what was that? What casino? They breached a casino. Iranian hackers breached a casino because the CEO of the casino said some stuff about Iran. Right? There was that whole story. There was the whole the movie. What was the movie that talked about North Korea? That was the North Korean hackers' direct attack on Sony for releasing that picture. What was that movie called? Now I can't think of it.
Somebody Google it.
But it wasn't like an extortion thing. They were just like, we're just going to rip apart Sony for even thinking about releasing this film. I've not seen it where it was very precise like this one. Like, not even you need to fire your research team. They named people by name.
Right.
You need to fire these two people. And for those two people, you need to take, if there was some digital message or form where they said that, you need to print that shit out. You need to frame it and put it on your wall. Because, good for you for pissing off attackers where they're calling you by name. You're doing God's work. And
in fact, we should try to interview them. I'm just saying.
We should be like, you folks are awesome. That is awesome. If you can piss off attackers that much, you're doing the right shit, and keep that shit up, right?
Yep. There's got to be some memes out there about this too. Come on, there's so much fun can be had with,
right?
Because nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Our main weapon is fear and surprise. Our two main weapons are fear, surprise, and the ruthless vicious. Well, three main. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, did you want to talk about lasagna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's stop
and,
there.
and after we talk about lasagna, I want to talk about one of Sam's stories. If you still are.
This is just like, I love, and I think we covered a story like this last night. Like, this reminds me of the old days of the internet.
This reminds me of a month ago.
Yeah, like people just like posting their experiences, and it ends up on the internet, and people latch onto it, and it's just a great story. Like, this is like the beautiful part of the internet, and there's too much crappy parts of the internet. But this takes me back to like, this is, to me, is like a BBS post, right? Like where someone posts on a BBS and you would read it and be like, wow, that's really like cool story. So this person's like, lasagna leads to an unbootable server. Like, if there ever is a headline that catches your attention, it's this one. I'm Italian, ate a lot of lasagna growing up. I love lasagna. It's awesome. Those remember Garfield? Remember Garfield? Used to always eat lasagna. Like, lasagna is amazing. But
You're
anyway,
Italian?
I am Italian. My last name doesn't indicate that, but I am Italian.
Okay.
Fun fact about Paul. But so he goes, look, I was hungry. I put a lasagna in the oven. Hopefully you made that lasagna from scratch.
Unlikely.
It's
You made the
Stouffer's.
sauce.
It was probably Stouffer's. Come on.
Brown the meat. You made the sauce, because it's not gravy you put in lasagna. It's sauce. You put the sauce in
Correct.
there with the noodles. You got to soak the noodles, and then you get a cheese.
If you're Italian, what's the difference between gravy and sauce from an Italian?
So sauce is like something you make quick.
Mhm.
Like it's it's a half hour kind of thing. Gravy,
because it is being augmented by the things that you are adding it to.
yes. And typically in a sauce, you don't add a lot of meat. I want to say that's one of the delineations, although I have made sauce that does have meat. But gravy is something that starts with meat. You brown the meat, and then gravy is something you cook like all day with meat in it. And
I asked because I saw that movie about the guy that had the restaurant he hired grandmothers, Italian.
Yeah.
grandmothers.
Oh, I love that movie. My
That's
wife
a great
watched it. It was
movie, but
awesome.
I'm like,
yeah.
I've never had brown gravy. I gotta find brown gravy. So I can try
I'm probably messing it up. There is better research. Go research the difference between sauce and gravy, especially if you're into cooking. It's an eye-opening experience. So anyway, so he's putting lasagna in the oven. He goes to do some smart home stuff. Then the room goes dark. He checks the breakers, and the RCD tripped. RCD is what is the breaker? That's like a breaker.
Yeah, it's like the whole house breaker.
RFI.
It's like the whole house breaker. Yeah. Okay. So then he goes, well, I don't hear my NAS running anymore, but I have a UPS. He turns the oven off, and the RCD on again. Turns the oven on. The RCD trips again. Turns the oven off, and RCD on again. Checks the server closet. Everything's dark. Finds out the UPS batteries are faulty without warning.
And they're UPSs that should have warned that
the
batteries
were going low. And he says, I think somewhere in here it was a like name brand UPS. So he turns everything on again. It comes up. One server's still down 10 minutes later. Connects to the display. It says no operating system found. Takes server out. The BIOS battery, I'm assuming he means the CMOS battery. CMOS battery is dead. Sets everything up again, enables UEFI, server starts, and everything else starts working. So funny story how
still no lasagna.
He says,
but wasn't the real problem like a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil or something like that?
Could be. So some funny story how some lust for lasagna led to a non-booting server and a lesson learned not to trust your UPS's self-tests, apparently. That's great. Great internet story.
So the moral to the story is everybody should go cook some lasagna and see what happens.
And test their UPSs.
And test their UPS system.
Batteries are a thing. Like maintaining actual hardware is hard because batteries are a thing, and batteries die in both UPSs and in your CMOS on your computer.
Yep.
So the killer here on this story, Paul, is you led off talking about your Italian connection, and I'm flashing back on Saturday when I saw my buddy up here, George Asadorian.
Oh yeah,
who told me
I know
the same
George.
thing.
Yeah,
He's
George,
more
great
Italian
guy.
than Armenian, and we
See
got
that?
onto Italian food. I mean, what the hell, man?
He must be a great guy.
They must be related.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's a smidge older than you.
Smidge. Also, does anyone know what CMOS stands for? It's my favorite acronym. It's one of my favorite acronyms.
Complementary metal oxide semiconductor.
Yes, Sam. Yes, 100 points for
Points
Sam.
to Sam.
I was in one of my college computer classes. I was like a junior or senior, and I was already the obnoxious student that every time
me.
Every time the professor would ask, Sam knows, he's nodding his head because he has these students in his class now. Every time he asked a question, I was that student that was raising his hand, and he was like, anyone else but Paul. And then in class he was talking about CMOS, and he's like, I can't remember, I don't know what CMOS stands for. And I raised my hand, and he's like, what now, Paul? And I'm like, complementary metal oxide semiconductor.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't believe it, I'm gonna have to go look it up. And the next class he's like, Paul was right. God damn it. Shut up, Paul. Stop answering all the questions.
This happened to me This happened to me at DEF CON and Hacker Jeopardy. They had the final Jeopardy answer, and it was wrong. And they gave him the points for the wrong answer. And I was in the back yelling,
For the wrong answer?
No.
It's
Nobody
definitely
cared.
complementary metal oxide semiconductor. Definitely.
Well,
that.
it wasn't that.
Was that
it was the
Lintile?
Snyder
Was
subnet.
Lintile
But
running
anyway.
it?
Definitely Kmart. Definitely Kmart.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Speaking of Kmart and putting on the Ritz, how about Sam's story number 5?
Sam's
Yeah, that's-
story number 5.
Putting
That's
on the
what
code.
I thought.
Putin on the code.
There's
Putin on the code.
There's not much to it. It's just another supply chain thing that should have been addressed by software bill of materials. But apparently the Department of Defense and thousands of other public projects are using a Node.js utility, which is maintained by one Russian Yandex employee. And, that seems like that's probably an unwise, supply chain to trust.
Yeah, and even better, the fun part is that it finds files and folders that match specific patterns. Oh, none of that could get reported back.
But hold on. It begs
Interesting.
the question, are all developers who live in Russia bad? No.
Well, and by the
Is
way,
the Russian
you could,
government,
No,
an
but
adversary nation state,
and
yes.
Do they have
well,
higher
by the way, you could
authority that
argue
they're
under the
answering
current
to?
government that we should trust the ones in Russia and not trust the ones in Canada. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't.
it's not
It's
clear what
hard,
side
like,
we're on anymore.
Right, but also that begs the question, who do you trust as developers, and what
That's right.
country are they in, and do you trust that country? Right, that's
Right.
Yeah.
But also,
right.
I've given the scenario where we're really hot to trot on anything. The narrative that I see now is anything from China is bad. Any computer hardware and software from China is bad. It all contains backdoors. It's all malicious. It's all evil. We need to develop that here in the United States. Okay,
What, the
but-
evil backdoored hardware needs to be developed here in the United States? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
So, but that you can't
No,
you can't make that leap of, if it's developed here, it's perfectly safe.
No.
No, all hardware and software has to go through some validation process for security. I don't care if it's made in China. I don't care if it's made in the U.S. or any other country,
Has
by
to
any other
or
company,
should?
by any other development. It should, Jeff, to your point, succumb to some kind of scrutiny and or validation that ensures that it hasn't been tampered with, that there aren't malicious backdoors, that there aren't non-malicious backdoors that can be used for malicious purposes, right? The term backdoor means a lot of things. Like backdoors aren't secrets. Mr. Potato Head, backdoors are not secrets. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who puts the backdoor in. Wherever you get it from, you gotta make sure there's no backdoors in it.
Yep. And Paul, you should have a really good conversation with a whole bunch of our Congress critters because, go look at the connected vehicle rule. The connected vehicle rule basically states that by a certain date coming up very quickly here, that if you are running code from China or Russia on any components in a vehicle that is connected, you're losing access to the marketplace.
Yet,
Yet.
automotive manufacturers
Mhm.
can produce cars and sell them here in the U.S. without basic protections from theft.
Yep.
So, from what I understand, from what I've read about this since the Flipper Zero thing and the Kia Boys hacks, right, is that countries such as Canada and Australia years ago mandated that any vehicle sold in our country has to have an immobilizer. Now, if you remember from, I believe, last week, where we talked about immobilizers as like a huge evolution and step forward in vehicle security as a theft deterrent,
Mhm.
meaning the vehicle will not start unless there's some RF communication between a key fob and electronics in the vehicle. They have to be able to talk to each other in proximity. I don't pretend to know exactly how it works, but basically the car will not start unless your key fob is in proximity. Australia and Canada, you can fact check me on this, have observed a drastic, at least Australia, what I read, was a drastic reduction in car theft since the mandating of immobilizers in vehicles sold in that country. However, come here to the US. There is no such mandate for an immobilizer here in the US. Therefore, manufacturers like Hyundai and Kia can sell vehicles in the US without an immobilizer. And for model years that go back to like 07 to 2022 Kia and Hyundais, you can just break into the car and then you can use a screwdriver or a USB key after you take apart the steering column and start the car because there's no immobilizer, which gave birth to what we call the Kia Boys, which we've covered on the show before.
Many times.
Yeah. Which just, it's insane. It's insane that we say like, oh, you can't, if you buy shit from China, you have to succumb to all these things. Yet we just haven't done the basic things like other countries and mandated immobilizers. Also, the story that I have about the Flipper Zero. The next saga in the Flipper Zero can be used to unlock a car. Kia and Hyundai are like, yeah, we've heard these reports, but we're not doing anything about it. There is no problem there. Like,
these are not the droids you're looking for.
This is not, these are not the droids you're looking for. And I'm like,
they didn't really make that announcement. Just like Google
the research that I've done, presented on this show, just to recap really quickly, there are previous attacks against key lock. There are attacks for that we called rollback and roll jam. And they exhibit certain characteristics. However, the new attacks exhibit a characteristic that once the attack is performed, the key fob, your original key fob to the vehicle, no longer functions. To me, that means that corroborates the story that attackers have gotten access to the source code, to either the key fob or the vehicle or both, have looked at the pseudo-random or random number seed generation algorithm and figured out how to do that, which means if I can capture an unlock code from a key fob, if I know how the algorithm works, I can predict the next number. I can transmit the next one to unlock the vehicle. The key fob is now out of sync and no longer works, which multiple sources have reported that that's how it works. Now, both Flipper Zero and car manufacturers say either this attack is complete bullshit or it's based on older attacks. Those older attacks that we talked about on the show last week don't invalidate the key fob.
Well,
so when I talked to one of my security researchers, I was like, dude, what is it with this like random number generation and the rolling code thing? And he gave an example from way back in history. He's like, yeah, we looked at this code way back in the day. We were able to determine how it wasn't vehicle related. It was related to some other software.
Probably garage door opener.
But he said, like, look, if you understand how the seed is generated and how the algorithm works, he's like, you can just predict the next number. And that's been a proven thing for I don't know, Jeff, probably goes back to the days of you working in the three-letter government agency with respect to seeds and how encryption and cryptography works. Like, if you can predict that shit,
well,
and I'm like, well, that makes that makes sense.
Random function.
Yeah, I'm like, that makes sense, dude. Because if I can just predict it based on my knowledge of how it works, it would invalidate the key fob.
Well, it doesn't. Therefore, it doesn't invalidate the key fob.
It doesn't invalidate.
It temporarily invalidates the key fob because you play one. The next guess is a 3. So the attacker plays 3. It unlocks the door. The key fob knows the next one is 3. It plays 3, and the car's like, that's already been used. That. So you press it again, and it plays 7.
Do you think it rolls again if you push it again?
It does,
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Every press every activation is a new roll,
or it just become.
Well, it's kind of like the RSA key fob back in the day.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this was configurable, but because of the latency involved in the authentication, even if the latest random stream had expired, it would still work for some amount of
It's
time.
like a grace period.
It's
grace period.
Same thing with your current your authenticator apps.
Authenticator apps.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I get 3 seconds and I missed it, and then it still works.
It still works because there's a grace period.
There is.
Okta to log into PPWorks now. Same principle.
Correct.
Yeah.
You've got a time frame, but you've got a grace period as well.
Right. There's a grace
It's
period.
not a very long grace
before it
period,
expires. And there used to be a flaw in the RSA algorithm where you could actually predict the next token.
That was a big what to do, right?
Yeah.
And that was great for help, creating help desk type tools, but it really wasn't.
But like largely
great.
we got to, but was that the downfall of the RSA token? Was that vulnerability? Because I feel like most organizations
it was
have ditched.
the evolution
They're still
of
going strong.
using
It was the evolution of using
mobile
the
apps
soft
and
tokens.
the soft tokens. Yeah.
because people would lose their RSA keys and their YubiKeys and stuff like that. YubiKey is still a thing. But
I still have RSA keys that the batteries have died because I've had them so long for clients that never wanted them back from so long.
I got rid of my last of those. I sent my ones that were live back when I retired, but
But I'll say this, Paul, I have never seen a commercial cryptographic implementation that would hold up to DoD NSA standards.
standards.
Lee's looking for his RSA
It's a different
token.
threat model. It's a different threat model, though.
It's hard. It's really hard to do this type of stuff and do it well. You even referred to it as an algorithm, and I would it's probably not an algorithm. It's probably more like a function call. Splitting hairs maybe, but it's got to be something that's mass marketable, and therefore there's going to be some shortcuts taken or some dumbing down or some, they're relying very much on the security versus obscurity. I mean, it's true in the PCI world with, everything is most merchants now are going to card readers that do encryption. It's not DoD level encryption by any stretch of the imagination. And it very much relies on people not caring or wanting to go through the trouble of understanding how it works. But, if you've got two ends that have to be synced in terms of like a random key generation, that means both ends have to know certain things. And if both ends have to know certain things, it's relatively easy to figure out what those things are.
In how the next number is generated.
Yeah.
Which is the case, I believe, with the Flipper Zero with the custom firmware that's doing that. And again, I don't have any.
But you had said it required reverse engineering. I'm not. I agree.
Reverse engineering. It's an understanding of how the code is, not algorithm, right? But how the code is written to create that communication between key fob and car. If you can understand that, then you could conceivably create software that can predict the next number accurately and subvert the system.
So
that's what I think. But that's what I think is happening. And again, I haven't tested. I haven't looked at the code. I really want the firmware just so I can validate my hypothesis. Right? I want to be able to validate. I'm kind of speaking on a turn. And everything I've read and all the little bits and pieces I got from all the articles we've covered, putting that together, comparing that to previous research. Right. So this is like not concrete evidence. It's what do we call it? Like secondhand evidence or whatever. Circumstantial. Thank you. Evidence that's what I believe is happening. I don't know that,
or an educated guess. Yeah,
it's an educated guess.
Yeah. Just don't invalidate my movie magic carjacking scene, okay?
Right.
But
it doesn't let you start. From
Speaking of the government,
but anyway. Yeah,
Paul. Larry had I think his story number 2 was an appointment of someone at SISA. I think we could talk a little bit about SISA and the future of SISA, or the not future of SISA.
Yeah.
My question to you, Larry, was why did you post this article?
So one, when I originally read this and I clicked the add to stories, I thought it was the appointment of Sean Planky and not Nicholas Anderson to executive assistant. So I had my signals crossed and that type of stuff.
Right. So this is a subordinate to Sean. And has he been approved yet?
He is not.
I didn't think he had.
Sean Planky is not, but he's expected to. But I think, but even still, I think there's some, talking about SISA and some of my recent interactions with SISA.
Are we getting qualified people who are working for SISA?
No, we're not, because they fired everybody.
Yeah, fired the qualified people.
Well, they fired or let go, or they've left because
the writing on the wall.
Yeah, Alan Friedman's now gone.
I don't want to speak for Alan Friedman and Todd Beardsley, but I can't.
Well, Alan's last day was the Friday before after summer camp.
Sure, but. Yep. And I don't want to speak for either Todd or Alan, but the fact is they have both left SISA. And I don't want to speculate on the circumstances as to why or how or anything that happened. But the fact remains, people that we know that are qualified people, because we all know, pretty much all of us know them personally, right? If you don't, I know both of them personally. I believe they're qualified people, and they're both not working for SISA.
Right.
Today. And now we're getting new people that are coming in, and I have not been able to validate their credentials.
Wait, we're getting new people that are coming in?
Oh, I don't know. Well, new people coming in at the top is what hits the headlines. Yeah. Who's going to actually work there in the trenches? I don't pretend to know what's happening in SISA today.
But the part of the reason why I left the article there is that a quote from Anderson is that SISA grew so fast and it grew so large that it kind of became like Mikey in those old cereal commercials. Give it to Mikey. Mikey will eat anything. All of the random problems got dumped on SISA. So many of the things they have done have resulted in absolutely nothing the last couple of years.
Ouch.
That was a very interesting statement.
I agree. I understand it. There are some people that praise SISA, some people that like to pick it apart. I think that the answer is both. I think SISA's done some great things, and I think SISA, to your point, from the article, they've done some things that they're biting off more than they can chew, and they haven't been able to move the needle.
Yeah,
SISA Kev, I think an example that has moved the needle. However, when we sit here recently, there's not a whole lot of, but there hasn't really ever been much. I think the most transparency we've gotten from SISA, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I interviewed Todd when he was still at SISA, and Todd gave us insights as to how that worked. Todd's no longer at SISA. I don't know if those things are still true or if they're carrying on or not. And you know what? I eventually guess maybe Todd doesn't know either because he's not there anymore. Right. And I'm not putting that on Todd in any capacity.
And I think
Todd moved on. No. He works for Run Zero now, and I'm super happy for him and HD. They're working together again.
And I think your point about great work. I think your point about transparency is exactly that.
Yeah.
In that, stuff gets added. We were having this conversation offline that stuff gets added to the Kev. We're
not going to give any specifics here, but let's talk generally about
stuff
our gripes. Because then I have the same gripes.
Yeah, stuff gets added to the Kev, and they're not transparent about why it was added to the Kev, other than it's being exploited by threat actors.
Super frustrating.
Great. What are the TTPs? How do we know who was it reported by? Who's seeing it? And because there are folks that will say, well, like, the CVE that Kev was based on is completely bogus. Like, it doesn't work.
But even if it's legit, so my coworker Vlad is credited with CVE 2024. I think it's 54085, which is an authentication bypass command execution vulnerability in BMC software.
Yeah.
Ended up on the Kev at some point. And we were like, great. We're like, hey, who can tell us what was observed? Like, who can give us any more details? And
no one.
This was a month or two ago, and I still have no idea any of the specifics or details. And I work for the company where the researcher that discovered the vulnerability, whom I worked hand in hand with, had prior knowledge of the vulnerability, helped validate that with my coworker Vlad Babkin, who is an amazing security researcher. And we're like, wow, it could add to the Kev. Like, can we get any details as to why and how and who was exploiting it and how they were exploiting it and what they did once they exploited it? Like, that would help us build shit to help people.
Shit that will help the community.
Regardless
of whether it's Eclipsian and they make money on it, but still the community.
I got nothing.
You don't even get a response to say
nothing.
No.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
I get nothing.
Months,
and I have nothing. I have no further information as to why or how that vulnerability was added to the Kev. And I'm like, if you gave us,
but it's the government. Trust the government.
Trust is in government. Two words I don't use in the same sentence. Also, big tech companies, I don't trust them either. Probably more so than the government. That's neither here nor there. Back to the Kev, it's shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I don't want to take SISA's side, but I suspect some of this is with all the work they've been trying to do to get different companies and everything to share what's breaking and stuff. They've got a lot of confidentiality agreements going on. Just
sure.
IP protections.
And I get that, Lee.
But
yeah.
I don't say you're wrong, Paul. I'm just saying I'm sure that's a factor in there. And I'm also thinking about, remember a couple weeks ago, I think it was, maybe it was last week, Microsoft changed their advanced notification on vulnerabilities in that now when researchers that are in countries where they're obligated to share with their government.
If you're in China, you don't get the full details. You don't get the POC.
Yep,
I heard
Russia's
that too.
in that same boat.
Right.
But point being, it's a
but why?
balancing
Yeah,
act.
but okay, China and Russia
don't
aside,
have to say who it came from if they.
Exactly, like the people that found, like the person in the company that found the vulnerability, in this case, Eclipsium, you can't share with us what happened. Like we'll sign an NDA, like whatever it is, right? Like even just to satisfy our own curiosity, Vlad discovered the vulnerability. We have the most inner knowledge and workings of how that vulnerability was discovered and how it's used and how to weaponize it. We also have shit that we haven't published about. We didn't publish the really bad shit you can do with that vulnerability. Like we didn't walk attackers through, like, here's how you do a complete denial of service using this vulnerability, which is totally possible. We didn't publish that shit for obvious reasons. We published the proof of concept exploit because it was just so obvious, right? Like publishing any information about it would lead you to here's how you exploit it. So we released like nuclei rules to go test for it, which whatever. But then no one would share with us any details about how it ended up. Now, what Todd did say on the flip side, if I were to argue the other side of this, what Todd did say is like, look, there are commercial entities and I believe government entities that, based on their observations, report to SISA and say, we saw this being exploited in the wild. Now, when Todd was there, what he said in that interview was, then at CISA, we do our best to validate those claims, right? Like whatever, like we tested ourselves, we check with partners and stuff. We do our best to make sure that this is really something exploited in the wild. And then we add it to the Kev. And in rare cases, if we've discovered that it really wasn't exploited in the wild and there's not enough evidence to support that, we'll pull it from the Kev. Right? That's what he said. But again, Todd's not there anymore. I don't know all the changes that happened since that interview occurred. It was like several months ago. That was before the administration change happened. Now I don't know what's happening, so I can't speak. Not that interview is invalid. That's a record of what was happening at the time. And it's very likely in some of these cases where Larry and I are frustrated for a number of reasons. I mean, it could be that someone, and from what I understand, like, I don't think Todd actually said this on the show, but if I were to
reading between the lines, if a large company like Fortinet and or Gray Noise or whatever that has a lot of visibility into what's happening, Mandiant is another example.
Sure.
We saw this. We did forensics. We did incident response. We had sensors, and we saw this, and then we took that data. We reported it to CISA, and CISA issued it on the Kev. That's how it happens, and CISA does some extra validate. That's the way it should work. And it could be that there's some edge cases, that there's forensics incident response happening in areas that may be outside of our purview, but is in the purview of someone who can report to CISA, observes that attack. It could happen once. And that was the point
I was talking about with Todd, is that it doesn't need to be widespread.
Right.
It just means that someone observed one instance of that being exploited in the wild. Now, it doesn't mean that's the only instance of it exploited in the wild.
No.
It could be all the ones we don't have purview to, but we did. We observed it once. Like, hey, this was...
Yeah.
We got it. We got a route. We got a BMC. We did forensics. And we're like, holy shit, we found out they exploited this vulnerability. It's being exploited in the wild. Take the data, report to SISA. In a perfect world, SISA validates that data and then issues a KEV. So some of these things that we're kind of questioning, like, did that really happen in the wild?
Mhm.
Could be, it maybe once, but in like a really weird edge case. Or it could be the case with Owl conference web cameras. I think it's the company Owl.
Yeah.
And we covered the story, and CISA put it on the KEV.
Yep.
It said there's these vulnerabilities in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth stacks. They're being actively exploited by attackers. And Larry and I were like, wow, that is super cool. Like the shit that we've been talking about for a while, that
finally has come
attackers
true.
could be in proximity, exploit Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, gain a foothold into an IoT device, and use that to get in the company. Like, this is happening in the real world. This is exciting. I like it when shit's popped in the real world. It makes me excited. It's a bad day for defenders, but it's a great day for security researchers.
Yeah, define like, Paul.
Right? I love it when this shit happens. Like, I love it and I hate it, right? But we're excited. But then later, SISA was like, yeah, after further evaluation, that really wasn't exploited in the wild, and they retracted the KEV. But what's the process for that?
Do you retract your excitedness?
It, right? Like, once it becomes public on the KEV, now millions of people, security researchers, everyone can say, "Wow, that's interesting."
More importantly, current state of CISA with lack of employees and current
how are they validating it?
No current response rates. Like, if you send a request to CISA to say, "Hey, we don't believe that this is actually true," and months go by and you don't hear a response to your complaint,
there has to be a process where something can. So, but both CVE and KEV those programs have this issue where it's super hard. Once a CVE is issued, once a CVE ends up on the KEV, what's the process that goes through to dispute that? You can ask, what's his name from the curl? Daniel from who leads the curl project. Yeah. Once a CVE is issued, he was super frustrated in this process with respect to CVE. Yep. He's like, this is not a fucking vulnerability.
Yeah,
but there's a CVE issued, and you need to retract that. And MITRE's like, we're working on it.
Yeah, and months go by. So yes. one months go by for them to months go by for them to even answer the, hey, we're working on it. 2 months go by for them to even do anything.
But all of this
is not ideal.
All of this is predicated on sort of the trend in our industry to there's so many vulnerabilities, we can't deal with all of them. Let's just deal with the ones that are at least that have been exploited, and that's why the KEV has become a thing.
We're just gonna pat.
I'm pretty sure you're on the record as saying just patch everything.
Yeah.
Why and when and where did exploitation become the litmus test for when we the collective we should act and actually mitigate a vulnerability and tie this into our entire discussion of end-of-life systems that we spent the first part of our
you just need to patch the stuff that is likely to be exploited, because 5 out of 6 Russian roulette players are perfectly fine.
Right.
Or maybe, just maybe, there's an element to this thing that we call cybersecurity that isn't about the whole cycle of vulnerability discovery, verification, prioritization. Is it exploitable or not? Maybe there's other things that we should do that assume that vulnerabilities are out there and they're going to be there and they're going to be exploited or not. Maybe there's more to this than that, simply
I think
than the whack-a-mole that we used to talk about.
Isn't that called defense in depth?
Oh, but I hate that thing. I hate that term.
That'll never catch on, Larry.
I know it's a fad, just like the internet.
Yeah,
well. I mean, somebody that I used to work for asked me one time, "What's more important, a firewall or a vulnerability scanner?"
Well, it's pick your favorite kid.
the wrong question.
Is it?
It's the wrong question.
What's the right question then, Paul?
What makes our systems more resilient? And it's a longer list than just a firewall.
All right, so maybe it's not our systems need to be resilient. Maybe our
organization needs
to be resilient.
Yes, right.
Because we constantly, this whole industry for the past 30 some odd years has been predicated on technology solving the problem, technology keeping ahead of the problem, technology monitoring the problem. Maybe, just maybe, there's more to it than that.
I think it's more about the process and almost like an OODA loop, right? An OODA loop is...
Ooh. All right, what's OODA stand for, Paul?
The fighter pilot. It was the fighter pilot John something. Observe, orient. What's the D? Decide, and act. Observe, orient, decide, and act.
Yep.
And I truly believe this is our 20th year doing this podcast, right? We've talked about a million different topics with thousands of different people, and we've talked about security ad nauseum in the past 20 years. And when it comes down to
Flipper Zero and
Flipper Zero, PCI, talked about a lot of shit, like lasagna stuff. But talking about a lot of shit. But what does it come down? What's it come down to is can you become more resilient, more secure? I truly believe that answer, Jeff, as you dig in at the heart of cybersecurity, right, is those that can, as defenders, perform that OODA loop the most efficiently and effectively are the ones that win. So, I mean, part of that is patching.
Well, and there's an
part
implication.
Of that's communication. Part of that's configuration.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that go into it, but it's that OODA.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to do, and I'm not trying to negate all the things that we talk about. That all is important, but there's more to it than that. And to me, the essence of security is detection response. You can't stop everything. You can't prevent everything. Right. You can't harden everything.
Also, Jeff,
you got to be able to monitor that stuff's happening and nip it in the bud. But
also, I think a fresh perspective on that is architecture. Before all the detect, protect, and react and all that shit, when you're designing an architect, I hate using architect as a verb, but architecting the systems, if you nail that part, there's this proactive part of defending a network that I'm architecting in such a way that it's going to be more resilient. And not that that's the end all be all answer, but that sets you up for success. That a well architected systems, network, and infrastructure makes all of the detection, prevention, and response that much more easy because you've architected in such a way to make those things easier.
I would agree with that.
If easier to defend if you architect them correctly.
I would agree with that if you clarify that success is not 100% prevention.
Oh, agreed.
It's minimizing the damage and the consequence because stuff's going to happen. Can you detect that it's happening and respond to it? That's the essence of security, and because that's the essence. Right,
because good architecture isn't the end all be all. You're still going to have to do detection, response on that, but that stuff's easier against well architected designs, right? Reducing your attack surface, allowing your systems to be updated more easily. Providing the granular fine tune, we call that zero trust, right? Authentication, authorization, getting that stuff right. A lot of it is architecture.
Yep. Yes, but I mean, we've even talked in this episode about the difficulty and the economic reality of not everything is going to get fixed, not everything is going to get patched, not everything is going to be secured.
Not everything's going to be deployed in the
we need to get beyond that and assume that that's there and that's a given and that's a constant. And then security kicks in. To me, security, the essence of security is the monitoring, making sure you're watching what's going on and detecting the things that are bad early.
I like how you brought up topics we could talk about for another hour, and we're just coming up on the end of the.
Yeah, it's actually
time to wrap.
It's actually time to wrap.
Yep, it is. Unfortunately, we have a lot more to say, but a lot more stories in the show notes. Make sure you check out the show notes. Lots of good stuff in there. Articles that we did not cover. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, take us out.
Like and subscribe. Over and out.